So GME, the period of medical education that is mandatory for us to be practicing medicine independently here in the United States. So whether it's 1 year of internship, we hope not just a year, but many states allow a single year before you can get an independent license. And that was what used to be called a GP, general practitioner, was someone who had done just 1 year of internship. That has largely gone away, and predominantly physicians in practice are trained in a specialty discipline of 3 years or more. And ACGME, as I mentioned, is our accrediting body. They make the rules and we have to follow them. And when we follow them correctly, all of you get an accredited educational experience that hopefully prepares you properly for the role that you'll be having in your discipline. There are lots of people that are very invested in this process. All of you, of course, highly invested in that. But your programs, your program directors, our hospitals, our societies, all right, and society at large, right? We used to think we had adequate, if not surplus, number of physicians in this country. We were wrong. And now we are catching up with that. So there was a period for about 20 years where there was not a single new medical school opening in this country. And then we realized we were behind. And there's been a whole growth of medical schools that have come online. Of course, we've got osteopathic schools as well as allopathic schools. Osteopathic have their osteopathic residency programs as well, but many come into our allopathic residency programs. And all of this done to support the needs and growing needs of our society, our communities. So I mentioned 63, we're 65 graduates, and I mentioned the different hospitals that we serve as a part of our practice. As a part of your educational environment. So how do we ensure that when you finish, you are competent to be an autonomous practitioner, autonomous and licensed physician? So we have competencies. When you were a medical student, you had EPAs and trustable professional activities that you were judged to be reaching as you finished your medical school training. We have 6 major competencies: patient care, medical knowledge, practice-based learning, interpersonal communication skills, systems-based practice, and professionalism. Those are the core competencies that each and every accredited residency program must document, monitor, and fulfill, okay? These milestones then fall under these competencies to say that you are working towards on a 1 to 5 scale, because we like numeric scales, right? It makes us feel good, like we can march progress out. But we look at a person from a novice to an expert and over a growth curve, okay? And there's nothing wrong with being a novice. We're all novices in various ways and various things over our life, in both our profession and our personal lives, right? Our job is to help move people along that continuum, to be at that nearest level 5. And maybe we don't all get to level 5 in everything by the time we're done. Hopefully we're all continuing to grow and learn and improve as we move through our healthcare career, all right? There's always new things to learn: procedures, medications, processes that were not known at the time maybe we trained. And that lifelong learning helps us to continue to aspire to be the best practitioner that we can. So you do not need to reach a level 5 in each and every one of the milestones that you are going to be assessed on as you go forward. And this is what they look like. A milestone, here's an example of one: gathers and synthesizes essential and accurate information to define a patient's clinical problem. That clinical problem could be whatever it is in your own discipline, all right? And if you are at the novice, maybe you're not recognizing or documenting or being able to utilize that knowledge, to aspirational, all right? And this is not a linear necessarily growth and knowledge curve, right? We might learn things in certain ways more quickly. We might come in with a higher degree of knowledge than someone else in our team, but we are all moving along this continuum of hopefully continued growth and development of our skills. All right. I mentioned entrustable professional activities. So these are things that medical students are assessed on. These are dictated by LCME, the accrediting body for medical schools. All right. And some of these look a lot like competencies, right? Can gather a good history and physical exam. Well, that's patient care, right? Prioritizes in differential diagnosis for clinical encounter. All right, that's knowledge, that's patient care. So our learning may be assessed using different words, different categories, but in the end, we're on an ongoing continuum, a journey to continue to expand our knowledge so that when we are done and we graduate you, you will be board eligible, all right, to take the certifying exams that are required by your specialty board to get that full and unrestricted medical license in whichever a state you happen to practice, or maybe multiple states. All right, for our purposes here, the Missouri State Board of Healing Arts is the entity that licenses physicians and many other practitioners for that matter. When you're in training, you will be under a training license. Some people will proceed to get a full license during their training, but we provide the support and the cost to give you that training license. There are some people, as we mentioned, who are working over in Illinois, and they will actually have an Illinois training license, okay? That's for that program in family medicine, all right? So we are onboarding you here so that we can get all of those documents that are needed by our board, by our licensures, by Medicare and Medicaid to let you write prescriptions in our state and the state of Illinois. Fingerprinting for you, getting those processes set up for you if you're going to go to VA. No surprise, VA's got a lot of interesting forms and requirements, right? So we have to follow those processes and get everyone ready so that when you need to, you can go to VA and be able to practice medicine in that environment. All right. You may hear the word privileging or empanelment or credentialing. All right. Those are generally terms that are used for fully licensed members of a medical staff, usually of a hospital. Okay. You are not fully licensed. You are not credentialed or privileged at the hospital as an independent practitioner, but you are allowed to engage and practice and perform your duties under the supervision of your program director, your attending doctors at the hospital. So we're working in a sense under their licensure, but we do provide information to the hospital to attest to the fact that, yes, you have done your drug screen. Yes, you have gotten your training license. Yes, we've gotten all the paperwork needed for you to be able to step into our hospital environments and practice within the scope of what your current learning allows you to do under the supervision of your attending physicians, okay? So you are neither under that medical staff in that way, but you are allowed to practice within that environment, okay? Some of you have visas or immigration matters that we are working to help you with. These days, that's trickier than ever. So every day sometimes is a little different, and we are working very hard to ensure that we get everyone ready to go and into our learning environment. As I mentioned, we have a physician workforce shortage in this country. We need each and every one of you to be able to finish, to go out and to serve our communities in the work that you're being trained to do. All right. We have organizations that are invested in this that will help us to navigate some of this paperwork. And we have immigration attorneys within SSM that are assisting us with some of the situations that may happen as we process our visas. Okay. All right. I mentioned board eligibility, board certification. At some point, if you haven't already, you might want to step onto your board website. All of you will eventually be reported to the board of your discipline to say that you are a graduate of an ACGME accredited program, and you are then eligible to take examinations with that board. All right. They may have certain expectations that must be fulfilled in order for you to sit for that. In addition, ACGME has expectations of our programs of what we require for you to complete the program. Our own hospitals, our own institution has its own requirements of how we would ensure that you've met all of the necessary tests, procedures, and other activities of your program. Hopefully, and most of the time, these are not conflicting requirements, right? But that is our job here in the institution and within our programs to help ensure that what we do complies with all of the requirements, the boards, the ACGME, the programs, the school medicine, SSM, so that everything matches up and you're achieving all the necessary steps for your eventual graduation. All right. All right. Evaluation. So one of the key points of medical education and being a learner is we have an expectation that you will be evaluated, that you will perform duties, you will be evaluated by your teachers. Sometimes that's giving a lecture that you've done. Sometimes that might be doing a research project. Sometimes that could be how you take care of a patient, how you do a procedure. Sometimes these evaluations are formative. Your attending says, great job, the procedure went perfectly. Next time, use a little different angle with the needle. Formative feedback, all right? That may not be captured in a written form, but that is part of your evaluation and assessment of what you're doing, all right? Summative evaluations tend to come in those written forms at the end of a, say, block, end of a operative period, end of a rotation. And all of these cumulatively over the course of your training lead to that final summative evaluation that we give to your boards that gives you that graduation certificate and lets you move forward. Okay. There's a lot of focus on safety, quality, and health disparities. These are focus areas by ACGME. It's focus areas by our credentialing bodies and has become an ever-growing important part of training, right? How we conduct ourselves safely, how we ensure that we're providing quality care, how do we measure that? How do we identify when we're not quite meeting our goal? Those become safety and quality projects, and all of you at some point will have opportunity to work in safety and quality initiatives, quality improvement processes, QAPI, PI, sometimes it's referred to that way. All right. Part of that introductory process today was that introduction to safety and event reporting. All right. That's one of the first and key steps as we think about safety and quality. All right. One of the requirements we continue to uphold are duty hour and work restrictions on how many hours, how many days per week, how many calls you can take over a period of time. All right. And as Nicole Herzog pointed out, you will be tracking that time using new innovations so that we are certain that we are complying with the requirements, but also identifying places where maybe things need a little bit more adjustment. So ultimately, your success is our success, right? We want to maintain a reputation of being a fantastic place to train. And we want you to continue to feel that this is a fantastic place to learn so that you can go out and take what you've learned over all these years and continue to put it forward into your work. So that penultimate milestone is your ability to go in and be an independently practicing physician in your field. And with that, I think we finished the day out for you. Congratulations, you made the first day through. All right. All right, reception to follow at the Education Union, just beyond the fountain that you all walked by. Enjoy some great snacks and have a great rest of your evening.